Buy services that help you buy resellable high-value assets. This business model involves you looking for services on Fiverr that involve researching or finding digital assets. These assets take many different forms. There are people on Fiverr that use all sorts of sophisticated software to quickly find domain names. You can then buy these services to get a list of those domain names that you could possibly buy. Buy some, and then try to flip them. Similarly, there are service providers on Fiverr that can help you find leads. For example, if you're looking for yoga instructors in Los Angeles, there are virtual assistants who can look up those people. They can get a name, an address, a specialization, and contact details. They can even find social media accounts. You bundle all that information, then you sell it to people who are looking to reach those prospects. Do you see how this works? This is one of the least known ways to make money on Fiverr. If you know what you're doing, you can actually stand to make a lot more money using this technique than most of the other techniques I shared in this training. Advantages. A lot of the services that go into finding and analyzing potential digital assets are actually cheap on Fiverr. We're talking about $5. How come? A lot of these service providers don't do it by hand. They don't have the time to do it by hand. Plus, they're too smart for that. They use software. Some of them have special coded software that they built themselves or they hired somebody to do it for them. Others use off-the-shelf software. Regardless of the tool that they use, you benefit because you buy their services at a low price. Next, you can buy these services to compile an asset. For example, you hire somebody to find a certain type of doctor in a certain city in the United States. You can then take that information and sell it many times over. You pay for the asset once, but you can sell it again and again. Another advantage you get with this business model is that depending on the asset, you can actually charge quite a bit of money. Let's get one thing clear. If somebody just wants you to find all the doctors who offer their services in the greater Los Angeles, California area, you probably won't be able to charge too much money. There's probably a lot of lists out there. In fact, a lot of them are free. What makes your list so special? Now, if you come up with a list of specialist doctors who are looking to buy an MRI machine because they have bought a related machine in the not-so-distant past, that list that you have can be gold. You can sell it to an MRI sales company or companies related to MRI. Do you see the big picture here? Good. It's quite lucrative. Finally, you sell assets with this service. For example, you hire people to find specialized domain names. Those are assets. This is very different from leads. Leads are those who can resell many times over, but are not assets. Disadvantages. The big drawback to this is the fact that it costs money up front. People finding assets for you or digging up information for you will not do it for free. No chance. You have to pay up front. Next, you have to pick the right assets to sell. Otherwise, you'll have many assets that won't sell enough to cover your costs. Again, going back to the doctor example, you might think that people will pay good money for a pure list of doctors from a specific geographic area. Think again. Those lead lists are probably all over the place. Why should they pay you money? You have to find specialized information. The same applies to domain names. You have to pick the right type of domain name that has existing demand. Otherwise, people are not going to pay that much money for it, assuming they buy it at all. The next disadvantage is that reselling domains means buying the service to find it, analyze it, and then spending more money to buy the domain. In other words, you're paying many times over. Wait, it doesn't stop there. Just because you bought the domain doesn't necessarily mean that you can automatically flip it. A lot of times, people who buy digital assets like domains have to hang on to it for several months or even several years for it to be worth quite a bit of money. There's a lot of opportunity costs involved. This is not a slam dunk. Finally, if you're using Fiverr services to find data that you can turn around and sell, please understand that you just can't advertise online and people would line up to buy that data. Chances are high that you have to do direct outreach. This may mean that you would have to hire a virtual assistant to research businesses that may be interested in the data that you're selling and reach out to them. If you are extra proactive, you might want to hire call centers in places like the Philippines and India who do outbound sales. Basically, you'll just give them a pitch and phone numbers to call, and they'll take care of everything else. Usually, when an actual human being makes the outreach and gets a voice-to-voice connection, your chances of unloading your digital assets go up quite a bit. You're also able to charge a lot more money, but again, this is not a slam dunk. You have to have data assets that people would actually want to buy. It's anybody's guess if you have those kinds of assets, so you need to do your research first. Step-by-step directions. Step number 1, decide on what resellable asset you want to specialize in. Step number 2, formulate tightly defined research and production steps. This is extremely important. You cannot let your Fiverr freelancer do creative thinking for you. They work best when you have a preset list of decisions and analytical points for them to follow. They just need to go step by step to get the desired result. The less surprises, uncertainties, and discretion involved in the process, the better. Step number 3, contact top-notch researchers on Fiverr. Basically, you look for the type of services that are required to find this type of information or asset. The next thing is to look at the different researchers available. Look at their ranking, testimonials, and what people say about them. At this point, it's not a good idea to go cheap. Don't look for the lowest price service provider. Instead, look for somebody who is worth the money. Sure, you may pay a little bit more. However, if your results are solid and you have a high chance of reselling that data or finding the right asset, then you have struck gold. Step number 4, get the asset compiled. I'm talking primarily about data assets here. Step number 5, reach out and sell. This is the most important part. Seriously, the previous 4 steps are nothing compared to this step. If you get this right, you will make quite a bit of money. If you get this wrong, you're going to be sitting on an asset that is practically worthless. It only has potential value, but that's the best you can hope for. Potential. To turn that potential into cold, hard cash in your bank account, you have to reach out and sell. Again, Fiverr comes in handy. If you are too shy, or you don't have the time, or you simply can't be bothered to do this, there are virtual assistants on Fiverr. If you're looking for specialized services at their cheap prices, go to cognoplus.com. Regardless of how you do it, you need to have other people find your prospective buyers, get in touch with them, open the sale, and then you come in and try to close the sale. If the assets that you have gotten using this business model involve domain names, then you can place those domain names on auction websites like Flippa. Bundle others' services and sell operational assets. This way of making money off Fiverr is really not much different from the method I have described in video 6. The big difference, and in most cases the only difference, is that this website is operational. And what does that mean? It means that this website is generating traffic and is turning that traffic into dollars. In other words, it's actually generating an income. Advantages. The big advantage of this type of Fiverr service, flipping, is the money. That's right. With everything else being equal, people would rather pay more money for an online asset that already generates money. You may have designed a very good-looking online asset. Your turnkey website may look really good. The problem is, it's anybody's guess whether it can actually translate visitors into cash. You don't have any of that kind of uncertainty with an operational asset. You know that this thing works. You know that if you buy this asset, you will make money. Given enough time, this asset will produce enough money to cover the cash you spent to buy it in the first place. Given even more time, you make pure profit. That's how this type of asset works. It's no surprise that a lot of online investors in online properties would rather buy operational assets. You stand to get more money building this type of asset than a turnkey asset. After all, people are willing to pay a big premium for an asset that is already generating traffic and cash. This is a big deal because if you establish a track record of building and selling money-making websites, your reputation becomes golden. People will seek you out as the person they can buy assets from that guarantee income. Very few people can do that. If you're able to do that, then you are going to be able to charge a lot more money than turnkey site creators. If your properties consistently make money, you can even charge a bigger premium than other people who build similar types of websites. The big advantage here for buyers is the fact that you save your customers from the headaches of picking out a profitable niche, positioning an online entity, building a brand, building traffic, crafting the right content, and converting traffic into cash. Those are big problems. You will know this firsthand if you ever try building any kind of website or platform. It's not easy. The big value that you bring to the table is that you solve these problems for your clients. They get an actual working business. Disadvantages. The big disadvantage to this business model is that you have to spend cash up front. Again, just like the business model I've described in video 6, this is a cash upfront model because you're hiring people to build the asset. Unfortunately, your spending doesn't stop there. You probably have to buy traffic if you're not generating it organically. You're also going to be spending a lot of time to fine-tune and tweak the website so it performs optimally as far as making money is concerned. You're going to have to charge money for that time. Unfortunately, this is uncertain because it's anybody's guess when, if ever, this website actually starts converting traffic into cash. Another big disadvantage is that you are very vulnerable to niche selection. You have to pick the right niche. Otherwise, the ROI simply isn't going to be there. This means time because you're going to have to research the right niche. Market demands do fluctuate over time. A potentially fatal problem with this model is that you can't just assume that since this type of website asset has historically sold on Flippa, that you only need to show up at Flippa, list the asset, and then collect your money. It may not work out that way. It may turn out that for whatever reason, people are not buying this type of website on Flippa anymore. If that's the case, then you might have to sell on your own. By that point, All bets are off as to whether you can unload this asset or if you're going to have to discount it heavily just to move it. Finally, even if you are able to find a buyer, you can still suffer headaches. How come? Well, you turn over the website to somebody and it turns out that their traffic drops like a rock. It turns out that they're no longer able to convert the traffic into cash. This happens quite a bit. If this happens, then your reputation goes down the toilet. You may be thinking, well, that's just my online reputation. Think again. If word gets around that you are selling assets that stop working after a while, people are going to stop buying assets from you. That's the bottom line. Bad news. Step-by-step directions. Step 1. Pick successful niche sites with decent competition levels. Just go to Flippa. Figure out what sells. Make sure that you have decent competition. What do I mean by decent competition? I'm talking about competition that is not so crushing and so numerous that you really don't have a chance. There has to be enough of this type of site selling, but the potential sources or competitors on Flippa should not be so numerous that getting into this is just not worth your time. Step 2. Reverse engineer these niche sites using Fiverr gig service providers. This is pretty straightforward and self-explanatory. See video 6 on what is involved. Step 3. Use Fiverr to get content and traffic. This is what's different between this business model and the one that I described in video 6. In video 6, you just use all sorts of service providers to build the asset and content. That's it. You're not pumping it with content, nor are you getting traffic. In this business model, you're going to use Fiverr to get traffic. Here is a little bit of a caveat. There are a lot of scammers on Fiverr. There are a lot of people who would not hesitate to take your money in exchange for imaginary traffic. Do yourself a big favor. Look at the ratings of these people and be willing to pay a little bit extra for real traffic. If you play your cards right, you will be able to find service providers that would pump a real American or Western European traffic to your website, which can convert well and translate into a decent monthly income for the asset. Keep it up for a few months and then flip the site. Step 4. Fine-tune your website. If you really want to make money with your website, sell it when it's time. What do I mean by that? Fine-tune conversions and traffic generation and keep scaling up the income of your site until you can fetch a handsome price for your asset. Sure, you can turn around and sell the moment your website made $100 a month, but let me tell you, people would probably not pay more than $500 to possible $1,000 for your asset. There is a multiplier effect going on here. If your asset is making $100 a month and the multiplier for the bidders for your site ranges from 5 to 10, then expect anywhere from $500 to $1,000. You see how this works? Accordingly, fine-tune your conversions and traffic generation and keep scaling them up until your monthly income from the specific asset is high enough for you to get a very decent price. It all depends on what is comfortable for you. It also depends on how quickly you need the money.